Leeds here from Pop Turner, speaking to Morgan Kohan about Sullivan's crossing on the CW. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I mean, I loved the concept of this show when I was just reading what it was going to be about, because you know how it is, right? You see kind of cast announcements, trailers and everything, but like you read about it a little bit. And I loved just the concept of it and everything. What was it like getting scripts for it specifically? Like getting like diving into it specifically?
It was super exciting. I mean, at first I think I just had the first script when I was originally auditioning for it. And I loved it because I mean, yeah, I'm like, the first episode's been out everywhere. Yes, it has. Okay. It goes from like a medical drama to all of a sudden there's an arrest. All of a sudden we're back in a small town. And it felt like there was so many things going on that like you just don't really know where it's going to settle.
Yep.
And it was really exciting. And then after that, I had the first 6 scripts right away. So I got to kind of like really go through. So it was really great to kind of get to go through that journey right at the beginning and kind of have an idea of where it was going. And then after that they'd start to trickle in, and it was always exciting to see what was next.
To add to that, because I find that interesting, Morgan, about the journey, what's that journey and mindset like reading the scripts and then going and kind of seeing it transform onto the screen in a video village? Like, what is that specifically like for you?
I mean, it's always magical. Like, it's one thing to read it on the page and see what you think in your head and imagining it. And then you go to set on the day and it looks different. It is real. The people are in front of you. And all of a sudden it can completely change what you thought the scene was on the day to what it really is when you're working with someone opposite you. And then getting to see it like on screen after and see all the pieces come together with the music and the editing and the color correction and everything. It's such a cool journey again of like seeing the whole thing.
Is it always an overwhelming experience when, you sign on to a show? Like a movie, I feel like is always different because a show, there's always the opportunities to kind of play this character more than once. And like, you're going to be playing this character for a good amount of time, right? Like a bunch of episodes rather than one. Like, it's always an overwhelming feeling where like, you've never played this character before, right? So it's like you have an idea or everything. Like, do you know what I mean by that? Like, it's always gonna be overwhelmed when it's new, right?
And it's a little scary too, because it's like what you first put out there in the first episodes or whatever is like, you hope it feels right for the rest of the season, it's like a lot to I think everybody feels that, even if it's a movie or a show, like your first couple days too on set of like really feeling out how it all goes is always a little overwhelming and a little like just cross your fingers and hope for the best kind of thing.
100%. People in Canada have watched it on CTV. Episodes are starting to roll out in the States on the CW. Is it cool? Again, going back to it's kind of scary. I mean, at one point, it was in your hands. It was in Chad's hands where it was like your show. People haven't seen it, right? And then you wrap, and then you wait, and then it's announcements, and now it's like in the world's hands. Like, what's that been like for you so far with like the first episode being on the CW and everything?
Yeah, it's wild. It's really wild. You have to it is really that like once you do your work on the day, you kind of have to like wash your hands clean of it because so many other things go into it with editing the music, like everything, the marketing, the what scenes they decide to keep and not use. And you just kind of have to trust and hope for the best. And I think that they did. Thankfully, we're very happy with how it went. But yeah, and then it was so exciting how it came out in Canada. I feel like we had such a great reception to it.
Instant too. It was like quick, right?
It was pretty wild. And then now seeing it in the States as well too. And it dropped in Australia the week after. And so it's like, it's literally all over the world now.
I mean, that's a credit to your amazing performance, Morgan. Seriously.
Thank you. That's very sweet. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
And it's interesting because, in the beginning of the interview, you talked about the fact that there is this little kind of genre bending kind of component to the show where each episode's different, but the small town aspect of it is something I really like, and I truly think it's something a lot of people like. You worked on When Hope Calls, like you worked on that show before, When Hope Calls, which had that a little bit too. Do you feel like you were like prepared a little bit to work on a show like Sullivan's Crossing because of maybe a little bit of your experiences on like a small town vibe show like When Hope Calls? Or do they not really have to do with any like each other?
Well, no, I mean, I think there's definitely similar themes in there in that small community coming together, like having each other's backs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I grew up in a small town too, so not as small as Sullivan's Crossing, but I think I've got your own history and past to bring to it, and I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Sullivan's Crossing, everyone knows everyone, and it's like you better be careful because you're gonna cross someone.
Everyone will know by the next morning.
Is it all storytelling, or depending on the genre, does your mindset and preparation change depending on the project? Or is it all storytelling to you?
I think it will change a little bit depending on like, it's going to be like an action movie, then the training behind that. There's going to be different things like focused on. But I think when it comes to the story of it and the character, I think it's mainly going to be the same kind of work looking at the script in the way that I approach it.
Yep.
I think every project's going to be like a little bit different, you know?
Yep, 100%. Okay, getting back to Sullivan's Crossing, we're going to get a little deep, a little philosophical here. I got to set this up a little bit. So I feel like shows, like I am seeing a difference. Like I'm looking at shows like this. I'm looking at shows like Heartland, Virgin River. I've been doing pop alternative for quite a bit during the pandemic as well. I've seen this surge, this popularity. It's traveling fast. These shows are being watched more and more. Like I'm seeing it. You know what I mean? And I feel like during the pandemic, we were doing a lot of self-reflection because we had the time to do so. We were at home. We were watching things. We were thinking about our problems and everything. You look at your character in this show and you look at all the other characters and there's self-reflection all around. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on, what the next step is, what they're going to do relationships. So I feel like because we were doing that for 3 years, I feel like a show like this becomes instantly more relatable. So I'm just curious if you thought about that ever specifically.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not in that specific view, but yeah, I definitely think that like that is why these shows are doing so well right now. It kind of feels like it's either one or the other. Yep. I know I do of either like the like crazy crime, serial killer, whatever scariness of almost like you go numb to it, but it's like this different kind of turn your brain off but be invested, or you want to see the world that you would like to see in your own, like you want your version reflected back to you, but in maybe like a more glowy light.
That's such a great way of saying it. Absolutely. And to kind of add to that as well too, where when you're working on these shows at a time where, like we talked about, like you're growing as a person and it just kind of happens naturally, I feel like there's always learning experiences. And no matter whether you worked on a set one time or 1,000 times, Morgan, you're always going to learn something because you're working with certain people, certain genre. So what were learning experiences for you from an acting storytelling perspective on Sullivan's Crossing, Morgan?
I think in the first season, especially, we were filming episode 1 and 6 at the same time. So we were having to have like a full understanding of what was going on between those 6 episodes and where the character was. So figuring out how to make that work for myself and how to keep that in line. I think working with, it's like what you say, like every set you're going to learn so much on, whether you're like a day player or whether you're a regular or whatever.
Yep.
It's, you can never learn as much as you do on set as you do in a class. But of course, like you should be taking classes all the time, but like there's so much to learn. And it's like, it's even the stuff that you don't realize you're picking up on the day until later you look back on and you're like, oh, I approached that situation really differently than maybe I would have a couple of years ago. And I must have been from X, Y, and Z over the years kind of thing.
100%.
So it's almost more of like those little things that you don't are affecting you and like solidifying in you.
And when you wrap a show, is it just kind of a lot of those feelings, like where you're kind of, or do you like think about that afterwards? Like everything you just mentioned, I thought was really thoughtful, but like, is that instant thoughts, or do you have to kind of like, I wrapped, I need to take a break, I got to think about the next step? Like, what's that like? Or does that also depend on the project, right? It might be go, 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 or it might be like, I need a break.
Yeah, I think it probably depends on the project. I know this one was like season 1. I was so sad to wrap. I was so sad up until a week before, and then my body started shutting down on me, and I was like, "Oh no, this is good. I think I'm ready for like a minute."
Absolutely.
But yeah, it really is like you build this family for 4 months. You're working with the same people I was on almost every day for 4 months. So like, this is your whole world. I'm out in a different city. My dog is here. Like I have an apartment here. Like it's fully one thing. And then you're like, okay, bye. Hope to see you all in a year, I guess. So like yeah.
And to add to the beginning, like I said, I like the concept and everything, but I also was familiar too because, Robin Carr's books, I mean, like my mom read them, Sullivan's Crossing and everything. So I'm just curious what your relationship was when you booked the role with the source material. Like, did you read the books a lot, or did you kind of just keep them if you needed them and not I'm just curious. Like, that interests me. Like, I feel like I've asked that source material question, Morgan, so many times, and the 50-50 of like, no, I didn't touch it, or like, yeah, I was really immersed. Like, it's hilarious to me. It's like not one or the other.
So once I booked it, I read the first book.
Okay.
And I'm really glad I did. It gave me a good understanding of like where these characters were built from. Totally. And then seeing the scripts and seeing the differences, or what things were leaned into or what things were kind of like shied away from. So I think that gave me a good grounding of why the audience is here and drawn to it, and trying to keep that in mind. But then I didn't want to get too attached to it because I can see where the character is going in different ways, and I don't want to get muddled between things and make this thing.
Absolutely. And you actually, that's one of the best source material answers to my question, because it becomes such a short one where people are like, no, I wanted to go in fresh. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Or it's either like, oh, I read all the books, I love them. And I'm like, okay. So that was really awesome. No, but I feel like it's interesting, because I do understand the not paying attention of the original source material that much, because at the end of the day, these aren't the Robin Carr books. This is the show. Mm-hmm. So naturally, there's going to be differences. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So I get that, like separation a little bit. Like I do, especially from an acting perspective. Like I could see that for sure.
Yeah. It's you want to keep it fresh and not have too many ideas of what people want from you, I think, in it.
That's so well said. You're just hitting it out of the park with that stuff. It's like you knew I was going to ask that. Because it's so interesting, right? Like, one of the things I think people love a lot of my interviews is I like the behind the scenes, picking the brain kind of component of it, because, I could say like, tell me about your character, and you could be like, all right, let's do it. It could just be like one of those things. But it's like, I think if they want to know about your character, they need to watch Sullivan's Crossing on the CW. See what I did there?
That's great.
Absolutely. Morgan, it was so great chatting with you. Thanks so much for coming on Popternative.
Oh, lovely to chat with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so episodes of it's airing right now in Canada on CTV, but it's starting to air in the CW in the States, which is amazing. So they could check that out. And is there an Instagram account people could follow you at to keep up to date with things?
Yeah, my Instagram's just my name, so at Morgan Kohan.
Awesome. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. You can, of course, catch Morgan Kohan and Sullivan's Crossing on the CW and in Canada on the CTV. Until next time, it's Morgan and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.